gather them together, black and white, Bishop Tutu, everyone, come together and repent for lying on God. Now, I would ask you as a Christian, one who proclaims and professes to have met Jesus, how are you and your people going to develop 2 million jobs for the country?
All right.
How are you going to stop making the Pope white, Mary white, Jesus white, Moses white when they were not white? When and where are you going to develop a mass education program and not tell the people to wait till they get to heaven? When are you going to tell the man with 47 cars to sell those cars and give that money back to the poor people so that they might have a decent life? When are you going to repent on behalf of the Christians for enslaving the people, the descendants of whom are in this building tonight? When are you going to repent for causing the slaves to be prostitutes? When are you going to repent and ask forgiveness? When are you going to ask the white people to give back at least half of the 87% of the land that they stole in view of the fact that the Bible said, thou shalt not steal? When are you going to persuade your Christian white brothers to not control 95% of every asset in this country? And finally, when are you going to persuade the white people to give to the Tswana tribe all the Kimberly property that was the birthplace of all of the diamonds and give them an accounting for all the money due to them? When?
I have not studied much, but what I do know, I have met Jesus.
Thank you.
And
very
I
much.
know he has changed my life.
So you don't want to answer the question?
That he will change many other
Thank
people
you, sir.
if accept him.
Can I have the next question?
All right,
please?
brother.
Thank you very much.
Keep the faith. When white people say they're white, they're not referring to the color of their skin. If Margaret Thatcher gets a suntan, I don't know what it would look like, but let's just assume that Margaret Thatcher got a suntan. You wouldn't call her a colored woman, would you? You would still call her a white woman, even though her skin may be brown. What do you mean when you say white? You mean that she is from Europe. So whether she's Italian, white, Sweden, white, England, white, France, white. White means coming from Europe. Black means coming from Africa. So whether we're fair skin, brown skin, dark skin, East Coast, West Coast, North, South, if we're from the black continent and we've been here 300 years, we are black people from the black continent. All over the world, 1 billion people uniting through Ramadan. That's why I'm hopeful and optimistic that by the year 2050, when 1 out of every 2 persons would have been born a Muslim, we would have the first real meaningful opportunity for a permanent world peace. Assalamu alaikum. This country could explode. Who will be the first targets? The businessmen, the lawyers, those who didn't want the masses in their office. They will come without your permission. So if Hitler killed 6 million Jews who were European Jews, and Hitler was a European, give the Jews part of Germany, not of Palestine. Sure, he works, so do I. Raising the kids is not easy. Cooking and washing and taking them to school, this is not easy. He doesn't seem to understand I work too. What What I'm trying to find out, and you may know better than I do, tell me specifically, if I got this, everyone in this room, and we went out to the homeland and we started teaching people how to read who did not know how to read, what would the government do? What I'm saying to you in closing is that there is a great opportunity to really be a new South Africa and a new African. Forget the begging. There will be no gifts. I don't care what the World Bank tells you and the International Monetary Fund tells you. It's crumbs.
Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the World Islamic Propagation Establishment, I bid you all Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. For our non-Muslim friends in the audience, the meaning of this is may the peace, mercy and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Before I go any further, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Brother Ghazanfar Ali for helping me in arranging this meeting tonight here at the Gladstone Park Community Centre in Peterborough. Our speaker for the night is Dr. Khalid Abdullah Tariq Al Mansoor. Dr. Khalid Al Mansoor is an internationally acclaimed scholar of the highest caliber. He has achieved the Phi Beta Kappa Award, which is the highest academic award in the USA. He's achieved a BA in Philosophy and Logic, and he's also a Doctor of Jurisprudence. Dr. Khalid is also listed in various Who's Who books of the world, and just a couple of these are Who's Who in American Law, Who's Who in California, Who's Who in Trade and Industry, and also the Royal Blue Book of London. But perhaps the most melodious title for Dr. Khalid Al Mansoor is that he is Muslim who is proud to be a Muslim, and that he works diligently for the dawah of Islam. Brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure to ask Dr. Khalid to come and address us for an hour and a half on the topic of Islam, the universal religion. Warm applause for Dr. Khalid Al Mansoor.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's a great pleasure for me to be here this evening, and I would like to thank all of you for coming out. This is a Saturday evening. There are many things that you could have been doing at home, and the fact that you have rejected other alternatives to come here this evening, to me, warrants great appreciation on my part. I would like to express appreciation also to the World Islamic Propagation Establishment for sponsoring the tour throughout England. This is the next to the last address, formal address, and consequently I've had an opportunity to reflect over the experiences. I've learned a lot since I've been here, and I intend to carry the message that I have learned wherever I go. So I would like to express my appreciation to the World Islamic Propagation Establishment for affording me the opportunity to meet with you. Tonight's topic is a challenge, and it is a topic that I look forward to. It is a topic that relates to the essence of Islam. The purpose of my address tonight is not to abuse or condemn other religions, nor is it to abuse or condemn the followers of Islam. My purpose is to cause the followers of Islam to think very carefully about the religion. It is to invite those who are not Muslims to think very carefully and very critically about Islam, to make sure that we understand why Islam was and is and will always be relevant. Why? There are many religions in the world. Why do we become so excited and insistent that there's something special about Islam? Sometimes Muslims become so enthusiastic about the faith that they don't take time to be familiar with the basic elements of what makes Islam a perfect religion. Sometimes the West falls into the trap of trying to condemn Islam for political reasons, because they would like to get at a group of people who happen to be Muslims. They try to raid and defame the whole religion to get at this small group of people. In the modern world, it is fashionable to try to discredit certain groups of Arabs, Palestinians, and some of the Western media want to discredit all of Islam in order to help steal the Palestinians' land. We do not want to be scattered in our thinking. What I'm going to attempt to do tonight is try to show why Islam is a universal religion in a systematic way. I want to rely on logic and evidence. I want not to appeal to emotions. I want to appeal to your sense of logic. I want the statements that I make and the lecture that I give to be justified on the basis of sound logic. So when people ask you, what did Brother Khalid Al Mansoor talk about? You will say when he was in Petersburg that he talked about many things. The most important thing I remember, everything was logical. He offered evidence to back up the statements that he made. And I reserve the right, as a member of the audience, to weigh that evidence on the scale of logic and determine whether or not he was correct or incorrect. That is the purpose of us being here this evening. I want you to keep in mind that Islam is a universal religion. You sometimes hear that Islam is an Arab religion. Last year, when Sheikh Ahmed invited me to provide a series of lectures in South Africa, the numbers of lectures exceeded 40 in about 3 weeks. And when I walked over the land of South Africa, when I talked about Islam, many people told me, well, Islam is not for us. Islam is an Asian religion, or a Pakistani religion, or an Indian religion. In the United States, there are some racial groups who have been invited to consider Islam, and they say no. And I ask them why. They say, well, Islam is a black religion. It's only for African Americans. Or it is a cult. It is comprised of people who are kind of retarded or uncivilized, or they're prone to violence, or they are inclined toward voodoo. They will hurt you. Stay away from the Muslims. Consequently, when I tell you that Islam is none of those things, certainly there are Arabs, but Arabs constitute no more than 10% of the whole world of Islam. Yes, there are Pakistanis, there are Indians, but the largest country of Muslims in the world today is Indonesia, all the way out in the area of Asia. Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. You hear about the born-again Christians, and you hear about the Pentecostals, and you hear about Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witnesses, and you hear about the Hare Krishna. But the fact, according to the United Council of Churches, is that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. It's the fastest growing religion in Africa. It's the fastest growing religion in Asia. It's the fastest growing religion in Latin America. It's the fastest growing religion in America. It is the fastest growing religion in the world. There is a reason. The whole world cannot be retarded. The whole world cannot be uncivilized. The whole world cannot be terrorist. There has to be in the world some rational, sane, intelligent, investigatory individuals who have thought and weighed and analyzed, and they have come to the conclusion that Islam is a perfect religion. Now, we Muslims are not perfect. The religion is perfect. What I would like to do tonight is try to recapture some of the history of man, to try to show you why I am convinced, and 1,200,000,000 people tonight are convinced that Islam is the perfect religion. 1,200,000,000 Muslims tonight. Many of you are familiar with both the Bible and the Quran. And you are familiar with the creation of the world and the creation of man. You know the story very well, perhaps even better than I, of Adam in a perfect environment, the Garden of Eden. He had a mate who was created just as he was created, out of black clay. Adam had all the food he needed. It was provided in the Garden of Eden. He did not have to get up early in the morning and work all day long by the sweat of his brow. He lived in an environment where there was no air pollution, that we would be so fortunate. No water pollution. No ground pollution. An environment balanced perfectly. Adam had the opportunity each day to interact with the creator of the universe himself, and Adam did not have to go through anyone to talk to Allah. He did not talk to the elephants and the lions and ask them to intercede for him. He did not go to the mountains to ask the mountains or the waters or the trees to intercede for him. He did not ask his wife to intercede for him. He spoke to Allah directly. That is the perfect communication. You can never have a more perfect communication than a direct encounter. So Adam was a privileged human being. Adam was not perfect, but Adam lived in a perfect environment. And man has been attempting to return to that environment ever since Adam was dismissed, along with Eve, from the Garden of Eden. We would like to get back to that environmentally balanced experience, where we wouldn't have air pollution, cigarette smelling, smoke polluting the air, automobile free zone. We have now holes in the atmosphere, holes in ozone. That means that the ozone was filtering out the radiation from the sun. When there's a hole there, that radiation comes down and visits you. And after the visit is over, you start developing cancer. Man's inability to maintain a balance. When people began to experience lightning and thunder and floods, they were unnerved. They did not like it. Man strives for security. You want to know what to expect tomorrow. That's the reason one of the first things you do in the morning is to try to find the weather report. What is going to happen? The economic forecast. Will the economy become better or worse? Will my chances of being laid off from my job increase? You don't like uncertainty. You don't want to be laid off, but if you're going to be laid off in 2 months or 3 months, you want to know it now. You would like a chance to begin to plan. The desire for certainty. We find Noah being given instructions from the Creator to warn mankind of 2 things. 1, there's one God. Tell man that. 2, do not have any gods but me, and do not have anyone in between me and man. If you put someone in between, you will have imperfect communications. Why would you do that? If I were not on speaking terms, if Allah was not on speaking terms with mankind, I could understand trying to appoint an intermediary, someone that you think can be able to communicate. But Allah has promised all of us to be available for our plea. And He is requiring that we be available because He will judge us based upon His word. Without communications, You might not know his word. So he will inform you of his word as you listen to the voice of the Almighty. And that voice is captured in a holy document called the Quran. So he told Noah, inform the people, there is one God, but a God who loves them, a God who will communicate with them, who will explain the order of things. There is one God. And Noah carried out his message. There were a whole list of prophets. Abraham, whose name at one time was Abram, and he began to tell the same message. The prophets all made one declaration. Any other prophets in any of the 66 books in the Bible made one declaration. There is one God. Abraham said it, Isaac said it, Ishmael said it, David said it, Solomon said it, Isaiah said it, Ezekiel said it, Isaiah said it, Habakkuk said it, Zephaniah said it, Zechariah said it, Malachi said it, Ezra said it. They all said the same thing. One, Wahad. There is one God. But man continued to resist. Ever since Adam left the Garden of Eden, man wanted more than one God. And man wanted the gods in different forms. Outside of the Garden of Eden, there was lightning, thunder, earthquakes, floods. Man saw nature as uncontrollable. Frightened man to see nature rebelling against what was provided in the Garden of Eden as a perfect environment. And when man saw the lightning, he became frightened. He wanted the same security that you want with the weather report or the economic forecast. Tell me, will that lightning hurt me? Man does not like pain. Man can accommodate an abundance of pleasure, but man does not like pain. One small toothache, a little headache, arthritis, rheumatism. Man wants relief. So as man saw these occurrences of nature, he wanted to know, how long will they last? Is there any cure? Can you prevent them from taking life, inflicting pain? And man started talking to themselves, saying, I bet you, since the lightning never destroys the mountain can control the lightning. So if we have a little piece of rock, that will enable us to protect ourselves against the lightning. And when lightning hits the tree, results produce combustion, fire. And therefore, the fire is greater than the lightning. The fire is a product of lightning coming in to clash with other phenomena of nature. Therefore, fire becomes an object of worship. We say, as long as we keep the fire burning, light some candles, as long as we can keep that fire burning, we feel confident. Something we can see. Something we can hear. We want a concrete experience upon which to build our security. Man decided to construct the so-called Tower of Babel because they didn't want to drown. They did not recognize that the reason for the flood was man himself. It was his stubbornness, intransigence, his insistence to sin and to disobey the commandments of God. That's what produced the flood. Man said, I don't care what produced the flood. I don't like floods. Some of my best friends got killed. Some of my relatives got killed. They may not have been perfect, but they weren't that bad. They were pretty good people, and we had a good time together. We enjoyed visiting each other's homes. We had some pretty good meals. But all of a sudden, they're just gone, victims of a flood. We don't like that. That doesn't provide for us security. So they decided they would build a tower as high as they could, so if another flood came, they would merely go up for a week or a month or a year's hike, and then waited till all things subside, then come back down and enjoy the fruit of the land. But Allah said the purpose of the flood was to give you a lesson. You cannot escape the day of judgment. You will not build a tower to heaven. So all the spaceships that land on the moon will not prevent man from meeting his creator and answering to Allah for your deeds, both good and bad. You will not answer for me. You will not answer for your father or your mother or your children, but you will answer for your deeds. One gentleman who was a passenger in one of the early space travel programs contended that when he was on the moon, he heard something unfamiliar to him. Some kind of chant that he had never heard before. And he was just mystified. Why on the moon was he hearing some voice? When he returned to Earth, he was debriefed by the United States government. They wanted to know, did you hear anything? Did you see anything? List everything you saw or heard. He said, one of the things that I heard, I can't explain to you too well. I don't know what language it was. It was just garbled signs as far as I know. I have never heard anything like it before. And they said, well, can you write it out phonetically? He said, I can't. And then they dismissed him. Years later, this same astronaut was traveling in the Middle East, specifically in the land of Egypt. And he happened to be awakened by the call to prayer. And when he heard the call to prayer, he said, that's it. That's what I heard on the moon. I can tell, I know, I can remember exactly. That is what I heard on the moon. His experience suggests two things. One, Islam is universal. Two, it suggests that you cannot escape the jurisdiction of Allah regardless how far you go. Can't do that. Abraham taught that there is one God. Ishmael, his first son, taught there is one God. Isaac taught there is one God. Moses taught there is one God. But man continued to rebel. We want a God of wood. We want a God of stone. At the days after the death of Ishmael, when the people who descended from Ishmael, they are called the Quraysh tribe people in Arabia, people that look like me. These people in Arabia wanted more than one God, even though Ishmael told them all of his life. He built a Kaaba, a place of worship. And he said, let this place be a meeting place to remind you that there is one God. Mankind used the Kaaba for a meeting place, but then they start bringing in gods into the meeting place that was supposed to be for the true and the almighty God. At one time, in the 7th century, there were over 300 gods in the Kaaba. Man was just piling them up and piling them up. Every day, another god. As soon as someone thought that they have another pain and they saw something unusual, they said, let's make this a god. The more, the merrier. If one doesn't have any power, sooner or later, we will find the right God. That was the history of man. The Jews began to kill the prophets. When they came to say there's one God, the Jews said, you have to go. We don't want to hear this. God took them into captivity because of their sinful disposition. They said, we will find many gods wherever we go. What is so important to man about having many gods that he can talk to as intermediaries? It is important to man because man builds his security on what he can see. But you cannot see Allah, cannot touch Allah. You cannot taste or smell Allah. You cannot hear Allah in the sense of human communications. Allah is a conglomeration of a spirit, one God. And part of Allah is within you. And when you connect your spiritual component to the creator of the universe, you embrace the totality of knowledge and you embrace Allah. The purpose of recognizing one God is not because Allah is envious and a dictator, but because that is the only way you can be complete. That's the only way that you can transcend the rain and the flood and the lightning. The only way that you can transcend is to go within yourself where Allah has provided part of him. That's life. Life is Allah. So oneness with Allah is a privilege. And that is the reason that the Quran says, this day art thine enemies in despair of thy religion. So fear them not. Allah says, fear me. This day have I perfected for you your religion. You don't need sticks, you don't need stones. This day have I, Allah, perfected for you your religion. And I have completed my favor. Nothing else to do now. He did not have to do it. It was a favor, but it is now complete. I have completed my favor unto thee. And I have chosen for you, for your religion, Islam. Absolutely marvelous. A perfect religion. Created by the same entity that created the entire universe. Given to us as a favor. And it is complete. And the name is Islam. One who is submitting. That's all it means. You have decided not to submit to sticks and stones. You have submitted to Allah. So one of the purposes of submission to the true God is that it brings a maturation spiritually within yourself that makes you complete. A second reason is that worshiping idols and intermediaries creates division among men, creates hatred and envy among men, and creates political confusion among men. Allah, in His mercy, would like us, humans, to spend our time following the proper path, not fighting one another. Even Shaitan said to Allah, why would you make man? You know what he's going to do. He's going to start killing one another. He is going to do that. How does one avoid schisms and envy, hatred? It is by recognizing one God. So I can't come to you and tell you I found a rock, and this rock is powerful, and you should shoot those people over there because they don't have the rock. They have a stone, and they have some fire over there. So politicians develop and split the people, utilizing many gods, utilizing man's need for security, manipulating man's emotions to create confusion one against the other. Even though we have been taught the proper way. All of the prophets taught the same thing. Give me any prophet that you read about in the Old Testament. They taught the same thing. One God. One faith. We, men, have decided we don't want one God. We want many gods, and we want something we can see. When we get up in the morning and when we go to bed at night, something we can touch. Even though touching does not unite you with your Creator. Touching confines you to the world that we live in. Hearing, seeing, tasting confines us to this world. But through reflection and meditation on one God, we are united with the Creator. That is Islam, the universal religion. Ishmael taught the people, but his descendants had as many gods as the people before him. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came on earth, he had a mission. What was his mission? Well, fortunately, it's all written down in the Quran, so we don't have to debate about it. Plain and simple, recorded, a virtual signature saying this is exactly what was revealed to me. You don't have to get confused. Some holy books have been changed. They lost all the original manuscripts. They kept interpreting them, writing things in the margins of the script. When they were rewritten later by scribes, the marginal commentaries were integrated right in the text as though it was the revealed Word of God. Just confusing, makes it difficult to know what to rely on. Not so the Quran. The same revelation that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received from Allah is the same as he received it. It's the same as you can read it tonight. That has to make you feel good, like a good Muslim should. Comfortable, secure, knowing that you can rely. You don't have to wonder, is this going to change? Is this some political statement? Is this some mystical revelation that is not relevant? It is the Word. It's not going to change. And we are going to be judged by the Word of Allah. So when the Prophet came with his message, he said very clearly, do not have any other gods, do not have any intermediaries. There is one God. Islam is a universal religion. At the time he made this announcement, very few people really cared. For the first 3 years, he was just talking to family members, slaves and family members, about the rightfulness of the Word of Allah. His wife Khadija was the first to say, I submit, I recognize that you are declaring the righteous Word of God. And then a number of close friends, Abu Bakr and Ali, Bilal, Zayed, they became convinced. And they said, we will strive to maintain the belief in one God. How can we do it? And the Prophet taught them about Ramadan. 30 days, you don't eat or drink anything from sunup to sundown. No vitamins, no minerals, nothing. And during that period of time, you go inside of yourself. Don't go to any intermediaries. Go inside of yourself and unite yourself with the Most High God, the only God. And make a shahada, a declaration, so that mankind will hear all over the world, one God. Now there are 1,200,000,000 of us testifying on a daily basis to the world, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. According to the United Nations projection, in 65 years, 1 out of every 2 persons born into the world would have been born a Muslim. I didn't say that. That's what the United Nations said after using all of their computers and looking at population trends, and they assumed for purposes of that study that there were no more converts arise. That's to say, no one else from the day that study was done will convert to Islam. No one. We know that it's the fastest growing religion in the world. But if no one converted, 1 out of every 2 persons born on the planet would have been born into a Muslim family in 65 years. Now, if you add in the conversions at the rate they're going today, you might very well conclude that in 65 years, a minimum of 70 to 75% of the world would have been born a Muslim. So it behooves the world to become familiar with Islam, just for practical public relations, to know what kind of food we like, and what kind of clothes we like. If you're a businessman, even if you aren't a Muslim, you should be writing to your grandchildren, be sure to understand the Muslims. They will be the largest number, the largest block. And it does not take very much imagination to know what the consequences of such a population concentration will be. Every time they open up the United Nations, they're going to say Allahu Akbar, just to be able to communicate with 70 to 75% of the world. This should not frighten those who are not Muslims. It should just inform them of the future, what the profile of the world will be. It is irreversible. Can't change that. And those 1 billion today multiplied in 65 years will be 4 or 5 billion, maybe 6 billion. And they will all be crying out, Islam is the universal religion. Allahu Akbar. Shahadu la ilaha illallah. Assalamu alaikum. Become familiar with these terms. Don't think they're just terms used by kind of weirdos and people who are slightly unbalanced and terrorists. We are talking about an empirical projection of world population by the United Nations. Notwithstanding the profile of the future, notwithstanding the number of people who will be Muslims, at least in name, some will not be good Muslims. Some will not be faithful Muslims. Some will be hypocrites. Some will be bringing idols back, even though the Prophet told them not to do it. The Prophet, just like Jesus, said, don't worship me. Do not worship me. Don't do it. You can go to hell. As soon as Jesus died, what did the people do? Let's worship Jesus. This is man. Said we knew him. We talked to him. He was a very nice person, very committed, very sincere. We ate with him. We broke bread with him. We saw this man, and therefore, instead of letting him fulfill his destiny in peace, we said, Jesus saves. Jesus said, don't do that. There's one God. He's in heaven. They start distorting the scriptures. They start changing things to make it consistent. The book of Barabbas, which makes it clear what Jesus said, they just simply wouldn't even put it in the Bible. Someone said, what about the book of Barabbas? Where Jesus warns the disciples, do not try to worship me. And he told them, after I die, there will be a group of people who will try to elevate me to the level of God. Don't you be misled. They said, that book, throw it away. Hide it. Bury it. You can't find it in the Vulgate Bible now or in the King James Version, but you can find it in the Vatican. Ask the Pope where it is. They will tell you where it is tonight. They know it exists. but they just cannot overcome the proclivities of mankind. So the prophet told us, I am just a man. I mean, he made this clear, didn't he? I am just a man. Do not worship me. He said just like Jesus. Because he had a mandate from Allah. Don't worship me. Anything you can see from my life that will help you, fine. Start with the Quran. That's the model. That's the perfect model. It came directly from Allah, and it has been captured in the book. That's the model. And we said, yes, that's true. But then we started changing everything. We start saying, well, I don't really worship the saints, but I would like to go and pray to the saints and ask them to pray and help me get a blessing from Allah. How? I'm going to go to the grave site. For what? Allah is inside of us. He's not going to confine himself to the grave. He didn't put himself in the grave. He put part of himself inside you. Did you ever read in the Quran where it said, when you get ready to observe Ramadan and pray, go to the graveyard? Did you ever find it anywhere in those books? Man, after hearing the truth, finds that inclination, just like Adam, inclination from Shaitan to divide. So Shaitan will say, let's divide the Muslims. Let's cloud their mind against the truth. Allah said he will judge us based on our deeds in our life. Shaitan says, let's confuse them. Let's tell them, unless they wear a necktie and a suit, they will offend Allah. Just silly. Has nothing to do with your life. Has nothing to do with treating your neighbor properly or raising your children or staying away from alcohol and gambling and those nasty cigarettes that cause cancer. These are the substantive things of Islam. But we have gotten these superficial things. Your pants 3 inches too high. Watch that. So we talk about the length of the pants and drink ourselves to death. Now, which is the more important for Allah's judgment? Whether or not I have a beard or a mustache, or whether or not I am living the life of a Muslim. And Barakah, one of the most beautiful surahs, outlines what righteousness is in the 177th ayat. Tells us so we will never be misled. Doesn't mention the length of the pants one time. Doesn't mention the hairstyle one time. It does not mention clothing, fashions. It does not mention grave sites. It does not mention saints. It does not mention sinners. It says righteousness is neither turning to the east or the west. These are formalities. These help keep the people of Islam together. They're common cultural traits. And the Quran said righteousness is the belief in one God. One! In the last day, that's righteousness. And the angels. Righteousness is believing in life after death. The day of judgment, that's righteousness. Taking care of your children and your family and widows and those that are less fortunate. That is righteousness, and that's how we're going to be judged. Getting rid of slavery, that's righteousness. That means the caste system. Any form of slavery, get rid of it. This is defined as the righteous life. But man says, that's just too simple. I don't want to do that. Got to be something more complicated than that. So we get sidetracked. We've been given the universal and perfect religion, and we're doing the same thing the Jews did. We're doing the same thing that the children of Ishmael did. We're doing the same thing that the world has done. We refuse to recognize one God. We know the consequences of our behavior. It is going to create schisms. It is going to create confusion. When I was in South Africa, I was informed that the Christians had over 1,000 sects just in South Africa. Why? Because worshiping three gods. This is polytheism. One is one, two is two, three is three. You said, but Brother Khalid, you told us you weren't going to abuse any other religion. I'm not abusing, I'm describing. I'm not trying to condemn anyone, I'm describing mathematics. 1, 2, and 3 in any language is the same. So politically, people say, well, look, why don't you come over here with me? I don't like those people over there. They're Pentecostals, and they speak in tongues, but they don't speak in enough tongues. Come over here, we're going to speak in all tongues. And I believe in prophecy in addition to speaking in tongues. You come on over here. So you get politicians exploiting man and man's proclivity for confusion and building certainty on anything and everything except Allah. Some people want Mary to be the conduit. Say, you know, I believe in Allah. I believe Allah created me. I believe Allah loves me. But Mary, she was such a good person. I think I'm going to talk to Mary first and see what Mary can do. Can you believe that after Allah has told us so many times? This has been the most constant message to man, and this has been the greatest disobedience, that we refuse to interact with the Creator directly. And we are going to be judged on the principles of the universal religion. In Africa, what happened after Ishmael? Why is Islam so widely dispersed? When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam found persecution in those early years, he told some of the Muslims, go down to Abyssinia, go down to Ethiopia, just right across the river there is Africa. And that's where they went, and they were accepted and received. Then the Kurdish tribes went down there and tried to get them thrown out. They said, Abraha, would you please get rid of these people are evil and nasty? They said, what did they do? Said, well, they'll do something sooner or later. Just get rid of them, and we'll give you some money. But he said, I see their life. Their life is exemplary. Their life. He didn't say I saw their dress. He didn't say I saw the number of camels they had or the number of donkeys they had. He said, I saw their life. I see how they treat their children. I see how they raise their children. I see the love in their home. I see their business practices are honest. They're not stealing from each other. Everyone respects their business practices because they are established on the basis of equity. These are the things that I have seen. They're not standing out looking at women on the street corners all day and all night. They're not committing adultery. They're not committing fornication. They don't have AIDS. They're not drunk. They are models. These are the kind of people that I would like in my country so that they can help the other people here to see what a righteous life consists of. That's the image that the Muslims established when they were following the word of Allah. The Prophet said, do not worship me. Don't pray to me. Pray to Allah. There is only one God. Some of those people are still in Africa. They're today located in the country of Eritrea. Eritrea represented those Muslims who stayed there and who intermarried, and they continue to live there, and they're still there today, Eritrea. A brother, Abdullah, came from Medina because the Quran says that you should travel, because in traveling you will find knowledge. And he came down to Somalia, and he lived there. And the people in Somalia, those tribes that had many idols, those tribes worshiped many gods. When they saw the life of Abdullah, he didn't come with a gun. The Western media would try to suggest that Islam spread because people were prone to violence. And they had the sword of Islam, and the Islamic nuclear bomb. That's what they keep telling you. But Brother Abdullah did nothing more dangerous than exhibit the traits of a Muslim. And people start converting, saying, Allahu Akbar, I want to be like that man. He's confident. When the light comes, he doesn't run and say, give me some stone, or give me some fire, or let me light a candle. I'm scared. He simply says, Allahu Akbar. The will of Allah be done. And his family looks at him with respect. When the storms and the winds and the hurricanes come, he is still praying with his family, saying, Allahu Akbar. Whether you take me now or you let me continue to live, I will be a servant of the Creator. So he has confidence and peace. He is not anxious, neurotic, or disturbed. He has followed the universal religion. And Brother Edward Blyden, in the 19th century, made a sojourn to Liberia in the west coast of Africa. And he compared Christianity and Islam. Now, he was a Christian himself. He was trained as a theologian, and he was one of the most renowned African scholars of his day. He received awards from the British, the French, and the Turks for his outstanding intellectual capability. He learned Arabic in 90 days. He learned Spanish before he was a teenager. When he was living in the Virgin Islands and his parents went to Panama looking for employment, they took him with him, and during the course of a summer, he was fluent in Spanish. He taught himself Greek and Latin. He went to the pyramids. He was a man of great intellect and renown. And he studied carefully the impact of Christianity, the impact of Islam on the West Africans. And he wrote a book called Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race by Edward Blyden. If you contact the World Islamic Propagation Establishment and ask them for the book, they will provide it for you. What were his conclusions? A man who was a Christian, who was trained as a theologian. He said the greatest thing that ever happened to Africa was Islam. The worst thing was Christianity. And he gave the reasons. He outlined the reasons in great detail. Now, you wouldn't, of course, expect to find this book taught to your children in school. You wouldn't expect Mr. Major to refer to this book during his campaign speech, nor would you expect Margaret Thatcher, nor would you expect Ronald Reagan or George Bush. These Europeans have looked to Europe as the source of civilization and culture. They don't have to say every day that Disraeli was white and Churchill was white. They have provided you through the television, through the comic books, through the pictures, the identity of these individuals. So when your children go to school and they hear about Churchill, they automatically know who Churchill was, his pedigree and his background. So it becomes difficult for your children to recognize that Islam is a universal religion, not an Arab religion, not a Pakistani religion, not an African American religion. It is a universal religion. Now, given that set of facts, and I would hope during the question and answer period, you would feel free to challenge any of those statements. You do not have to believe them because I said it. You simply say, give us your proof. That's what we want. To have proof, so once and for all, we will only have one God. And we will worship no one else. No one. And we will follow the Creator as it is outlined in the Quran in order to meet our Creator at the day of judgment with peace and happiness in our hearts. So, since Islam is the universal religion, and since we are Muslims, and since the world is watching, and since there is a great conspiracy against us, the newspaper has just recently written about the Secretary of State of the United States, James Baker, in his plans to co-opt the Muslims in Russia. 75 million of them. We don't know anything about the Muslims in Africa. We don't know anything about the Muslims in Russia. We don't know anything about the Muslims in Japan. We don't know anything about the Muslims in the Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, Mexico. We don't know very much about the Muslims in Asia, Malaysia. But we are going to change. There is a movement afoot. I don't know when it started. I don't know who was responsible. But I know that every time I travel around the world, I can feel the movement. There is a revival. Don't think about the past. You say in the past we were divided. That's the past. I'm here to assure you, brothers and sisters, the Muslims are uniting, and we're uniting on the basis of knowledge. Not mysticism, not gossip, not jealousy, not rivalry, knowledge. The more we know, the more unified we will be. The more we know, Muslims all over the world. Every time I travel now, I hear people saying, Assalamu alaikum. I just kind of look surprised. In the airports, people are reading the Quran. I say inside and outside, Allahu Akbar. I want to be a part of that great movement. 1 billion, 200 million strong and growing every day. Knowledge. We're telling our young people, I should be able to find the Muslims any country in the West because the young people should have the highest grades in the country. Muslims. Allah told us to seek knowledge, not just in the Quran, in the universe. Knowledge, chemistry, physics, computers, electrical engineering. All knowledge is legitimate for the Muslims. Our children should have the highest grades in England. Instead of people writing about Muslim violence and fighting one another, let them write about the Muslims having the highest grades in England. That means mom and dad has to come and tell their child, even if mom and dad can't read themselves, you cannot put your limitations over your children. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam could not read or write. But he said that the advice of a learned man is worth more than the prayers of 1,000 uneducated. After the Battle of Badr, he told those that had been captive or captured as prisoners of war, if you will teach 10 Muslims to read and write, you will be free. He stressed knowledge. Even if you have to go to China, the first thing he heard was Iqra. Iqra, Iqra, read. The challenge to the Muslims now is to go back to our foundations. Read. For some it will be difficult. When they first start learning, they'll be embarrassed. And they don't want to tell anyone. They don't know how to read. They won't want to tell their children, I don't know how to read. You think Allah doesn't know? Is your pride more important than the commandments of Allah? We're on a mission. We want to bring knowledge to the world. We want to bring medicine and science and the principles of archaeology, deontology, epistemology, axiology. We want to bring knowledge to the world. Expand it. We're not selfish. We don't want to just keep it for Muslims. We want to share for the whole world. But if we don't have it, we can't share it. Young people, starting tonight, make up your mind when you go to school, you're going to be a serious student. That's what it means to be a Muslim. You're going to be a student to make your parents, the teachers, the community, all the Muslims proud because you are applying yourself. Why? Because you have motivation based upon an obligation to fulfill the word of Allah. We want you to learn Arabic. We want you to learn the prayers in Arabic, learn to read the Quran in Arabic. But when you go to school the next day, learn math and physics and geometry and chemistry and electrical engineering and learn everything about the computer because that is the source of the future. We must have knowledge because we have a universal religion. We want to eliminate the schisms and division and the jealousy and the gossip and the garbage. The next time a person comes to you with gossip, you should give them a little button that says, I am not a garbage can, do not bring your garbage here. We are the ones that keep the fires of division flowing. If you ignore it, no one can get an advantage, even Shaitan. The devil can't do anything if you are committed to no garbage. No garbage in the mind. That means all those pornography, illustrations. No garbage in the soul. You clean that up through the Quran. No garbage in the body. Means you don't eat all that junk. Get nourishment. You ought to read these pamphlets and see what the Muslims have done. The Muslims have brought nutrition in the world today, and I defy anyone on the planet to match what a brother in the United States developed. I didn't do it. I wish I had. But I certainly take advantage of it. Every day I come alive. Muslims are showing the world how to come back to the basics that we had in the Garden of Eden. 2 tablespoons gives you all the vitamins and minerals that your body needs in a day. Put it in juice, drink it, and come alive. Muslims took the time to use their mind to develop come alive. Look alive, feel alive, read the literature. Ramadan is here. You need come alive. Clean out the system. Clean it out. Makes you feel good like Muslims should. There are Christians that take come alive. They say, we don't care who developed it. We want come alive. Buddhists, atheists, they recognize the greatest contribution in nutrition in the 20th century. I'm telling you, we're coming together. There is a revolution taking place. It is sweeping the world, and you are a part of it. Knowledge is one of the pillars. Ramadan, just a few more weeks. You should be smiling. You should be saying, I'm so happy Ramadan is almost here. If you only knew what Ramadan can do. If you only knew. It is 30 days of balancing the personality, turning the laser beam in your internal structure to see all of the cracks and the defects. It's a chance to do a little surgery internally, taking this spiritual light and correcting and realigning the body, seeing the little cancerous growths that are down there. Ramadan will give you the spiritual eye so that you can remove those little nagging jealousies and that scar tissue that you have built up over the years. Some children almost hate their parents. Parents do not respect the children. Ramadan brings justice and truth. As you become hungry during the day, your mind craves brain food, reading substance. Your spirit craves the Quran to give you the proper guideline, to know exactly how to please Allah. So you tell your body you will get nothing, but you ought to be happy because you get a rest. The organs that are grinding and working overtime with all that junk food, they now can rest. As your mind and your spirit become stronger and stronger. That is Ramadan. That's the purpose. We have some books here, videos, Qurans, to help you understand Ramadan. This is not something mystical. It's not something to bring you to an early grave. It is not something that is designed to punish you. It is not something that will exalt Allah. Ramadan realigns the body. It's Allah's mercy. He knows us. He made us. He knows our proclivities. He knows our inclinations. He knows our fondness for gossip and envy and strife. He knows our jealousies. He's simply saying it's going to take 30 days to clean up all that mess. Can't do it in 1 or 2 days. Otherwise, he would just have the fast for 2 or 3 days. This is deep. We've gossiped so much. We have spread lies about our brothers and sisters so much. And some of us have drank so much alcohol. Alcohol, drugs, nicotine, junk food, all those pizzas, hamburgers. Hamburger has 16 teaspoons of fat. And the Coca-Cola has 12-ounce can, 10 teaspoons of sugar. How comfortable do you feel about discharging your responsibilities as a parent, knowing what you're giving your children? Can you imagine waking your child up and he's saying, "Mommy, I'm hungry." You say, "Well, don't worry, son. Don't worry, daughter. I have just the right thing. Here's 16 teaspoons of fat. And as soon as you finish that, take 10 teaspoons of sugar. And then go on to school and study hard." This is empirical. This is not guessing. And then you wonder why your children cannot concentrate. We have a duty, my brothers and sisters, to bring Islam operationally where it was designed to be. We are coming back strong. You got to learn how to turn the television off. Don't watch it all day long. It's drugs. Ask yourself what you're watching. What are you watching it for? That is what is in the air. All over Africa. All over the United States. All over Latin America. The Muslims are coming at the forefront of a great revival. Some people say, well, the people in the old country. Don't worry about the people in the old country. Worry about yourself. How are you living for Allah? What about you? I have to say the same thing. Khalid, what about you? I have to remind myself, having such a marvelous name, Khalid Abdullah Tariq Al Mansoor. Khalid means eternal. Abdullah means the slave of Allah. Tariq means the proper way, straight way. Al Mansoor means the victorious. So every time you call my name, you remind me that if I will eternally be the slave of Allah and follow the proper way, I will always be victorious. This is the time. I'm going to bring my remarks to a close with one observation. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. is my last formal address of this tour, the last one. I've had the occasion to speak from many different topics. I've tried not to just repeat the same lecture every night, not just so that you would hear something new, but I wanted to hear something new. I wanted to learn something new. But we have told everyone that the bomb of bombs, the Islamic bomb, will be dropped tomorrow at 4. Dropped tomorrow at 4. That is the last major address. Now, I know it's a considerable distance to drive from Peterborough down to London. The reason that I know it is because I drove up here. So it's the same distance for me to get up here as it is for you to get there. But please come early in order to get a seat, because the word is going all around. Christians are coming. Jews are coming. Muslims are coming. They really want to know, is there such a thing as the Islamic bomb? Yes, there is. It will be dropped tomorrow at 4 p.m. If you are weak in heart, please do not come. Please. Just stay at home and let someone explain to you what happened. Or wait for the video, and when things start getting too much for you, just put it on pause or turn it off. But since you will not be able to turn me off tomorrow, please don't come if your heart is weak. If there's time, take some plaster of Paris and put it around your heart to try to build a wall, keep you strong. Only the strong survive. Tomorrow is going to be a major explosion. I have some pictures that you haven't seen before, because people are not going to accept what I say. You in this room tonight, you're saying, well, it sounds kind of logical, I will accept it. Tomorrow, they will not say that. There will be many people there who are going to say, we challenge you. And I'm going to put the picture up. I said, I've been waiting for that. Read my lips. Allahu Akbar. I have pictures. I'm going all the way back to the creation. And I'm going to affirm the creation with evidence. I'm coming all the way up to the 20th century, then I'm going to leap into the 21st century. An explosion. Islamic bomb. The debris will fall all over England and all over the world. You can come without any idols. You don't need any good luck charms. You don't need any precautionary measures. Come with your mind and your heart committed and fixated on Allah. Pray for me from tonight until tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Then you can pray in second gear. Starting now, you put it in overdrive. Pray and pray and pray. When you go home tonight, pray. When you get up in the morning, pray. When you wake up in the middle of the night, when you have a dream, pray. I would like to know how many are prepared to commit themselves to pray for me that Allah will provide me with the wisdom and knowledge to properly detonate the Islamic bomb. Don't raise your hands. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, and after tonight we're all eagerly awaiting for tomorrow, inshallah. Brothers and sisters, now is your opportunity to put questions to Dr. Khalid. You can ask anything you like. Please form a queue here by this microphone. We just have a few brief rules which we would like you to follow, please. Number one, please make sure that it is a question you ask and not a comment, because time is very short and we want to get through as many questions as we possibly can. Secondly, please try and restrict your question to the title of the topic. If you want to ask something else, that's okay. Dr. Khalid will be here later. But as long as you're on the microphone, please restrict your question to the topic. Please, anybody who has questions, start forming a queue here at this microphone. While you're doing that, I would like to introduce to you the Holy Quran that Dr. Khalid mentioned earlier. This Holy Quran is by Allama Abdullah Yusuf Ali, and it is different for three reasons. Number one, it has the Arabic text, which is very clear and simple to read, and it has the English translation next to it on the same page. This translation is very easy and simple to follow. At the bottom of each page is a detailed commentary, which makes the translation easier to understand. Perhaps the best thing about this Quran is that at the end it has a detailed index. Whatever you need to know, you can just turn to that page because all the references are given at the top of every page. I know that most of us here tonight are Muslims and we all have a copy of the Quran at home, but we strongly recommend that you get these Qurans because these can be given as gifts also to non-Muslim people who can read English. Give it at somebody's birthday, give it as a wedding present, or give it to your employer for Easter. They're only £5 each and they're freely available here. We also have the videos of Sheikh Didat and Dr. Khalid Al Mansoor's South African lecture tour for only £6 each, and other booklets by Sheikh Didat for only 50p each. We do ask you to please buy things from our stall because it will help us to continue inviting people like Dr. Khalid and Sheikh Didat to broaden our knowledge. Thank you very much. Can we have the first question?
Walaikum salam akhawat. Well, those who have heard my lectures around the world know that I am committed to the equality of women. I believe that women should be afforded the opportunity to study, to read, to pursue careers, and still be Muslims. I feel that the mother is going to have some of the most direct contact with the children, and therefore the mothers should read and understand the world that we're living in and inspire the children. We need to start somewhere, and I'm suggesting that we have an Islamic free zone. An Islamic free zone can take place any place, in the house, in the mosque, in neighbors' homes, in centers like this where women can come together, help each other read and improve their repertoire, look at literature, discuss the Quran, discuss history, discuss all knowledge. And I think that such reading groups should start immediately. I think women should utilize that knowledge to help themselves. They should read consumer reports. They should read on how to save money that can benefit their children, help their children go to college. That's all a part of reading, and I think that women should do that. I think men should do it. I'm not discriminating against men or women. I'm saying that both, all Muslims, women, men, children, should read and develop their mind and exhibit the basic principles of Islam. And there's nothing that I've ever read in the Quran that said knowledge should be pursued by men only. Thank you very much. Alaikum salam.
Brother, Islam is the universal religion and Muslim is our title. Yet there are some Muslims that give labels to others and cause divisions by calling others names. Share with us your views on what the Muslims should say, do in this case.
Well, I did devote considerable time in my lecture to how to prevent divisions, and certainly the Muslims should not have divisions. The basic way to prevent divisions is to worship Allah as one God, have no intermediaries, and use the Quran as the guide. The divisions come up when we don't use the Quran. We start interpreting all kinds of things that are ceremonial and are not the basic essence of Islam. If the masses of people are taught to read, many people don't read the Quran. Some read it in Arabic because they've memorized the Arabic. That's good for unity. But they don't understand Arabic and they don't know what they're reading. We need to read in whatever language we understand while we're in the process of learning Arabic, know in some language what Allah expects of us. When that is done, it's much more difficult for people to manipulate us, to create new sects. We are taught in the Quran that Allah is going to punish those who will divide the Muslims and create sects. That is specifically mentioned and condemned in the Quran. Some people don't want us to read the Quran. They tell us, no, it's not important. Just rely on me. I've studied for 20 years. Allah has studied for eternity. And what Allah has studied, He's put in that Quran. So that's what you read. It's wonderful to have theological scholars, and we respect the imams all over the world for the sacrifices they are made. But Allah is not going to forgive us if we do not read what is been revealed, and we should understand what we are reading. We will thereby avoid confusion and sects because we are following the universal religion. Thank you very much. Next question.
Assalamu
Alaikum salam.
You mentioned duty to Muslims, and the Prophet said that it is on every Muslim's duty to propagate Islam. So why is it that when someone stands up to propagate Islam, Muslims, instead of in support of him, stand against him? And if Muslims themselves are going to stand against propagation of Islam, could you tell me if someone, what should we do when Muslims themselves are against the propagation of Islam?
Well, of course, some Muslims are, they have been brainwashed. You have to understand that we were colonized for some 300 years. So for almost 300 years, we couldn't make any decisions at all. And the people that dominated us told us that if we wanted to get ahead, we had to be like them. So first thing we had to do is to try to change the name. I mean, there are Muslims who change the name because they think it will help them be more acceptable. And there are Muslims that have two sets of names. They have one when they meet us, and they have another one for the job. There are Muslims who have two sets of practices. They fast after they get home from 4 to 6. And then they eat for business luncheons because they said, well, this will help me get ahead and I'll make it up someday. They owe Allah about 10 or 20 years by now. There are some Muslims who say that they hate alcohol, can't stand it, if they're only taking this champagne because it's a party at the employment. Their job is at stake. They're just taking so many people getting laid off. They don't want, and Allah doesn't want us to be crazy. We should have common sense. So if everyone's drinking champagne, Allah will forgive us for that one sip. We ain't going to drink even the whole glass. Just sip it and let people see us holding it. We have, as a result of 300 years of subjugation and emasculation, we have lost part of our way. What do we do today? We know the Quran says spend in the way of Allah. Spend in the way of Allah. We can either look at those who would oppose us, or we can see what has to be done and see that Allah is going to judge us by what we do, not what others do not do. How easy do you think it was for the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How many people stood in his way? For 3 years, he didn't even go to the marketplace. These people were serious. They would try to kill him. They didn't want to hear it because they were making money with idols. They said, look, let all the people have the idols. Even if it is the Kaaba that was built by Abraham and Ishmael, that's all right. Even if they taught us one God, one ain't enough. If we let all these people put their gods in there, they would have tourist trade. We need the money. The merchants wanted to have the money. But the Prophet ﷺ refused to abandon his convictions and the message and the mandate. I'm simply saying to you that the crusade will fall to the shoulders of those who are soldiers of Islam. Those who refuse to be intimidated. they are the ones who will be holding hands. There's brothers like Shaheed and Ali and yourself and Samir. We're not afraid. Are we intimidated? We are here. And the mere fact that all these people are here is proof that Islam is changing. Forget about what happened yesterday. Islam is unfolding a revolution that is going to sweep the world increasingly. My advice to you, my brothers, grab our hand and let's move. Those that get in our way, we will pray for them. Tell them don't stay in there too long because we are awfully strong and we move very quickly. Now we are going forward and we refuse to accept no.
Thank you.
Alaikum salam.
According to a survey done, 90% or more Muslims read without knowing the meaning of the Quran. Can you please explain the importance of understanding the Quran?
I didn't understand. 90%?
Or more of the Muslims read the Quran.
90%. I'm not sure that it's 90%. I would suspect that it's not quite that number. But if 2% read the Quran without understanding it, then I think we should help that 2% find the Quran in some language that they understand. At the same time, we will teach them Arabic, but we will teach them what the Arabic means. Not just to memorize the Quran in Arabic and recite it, and when someone asks you, what does that mean? I'm looking for some direction of how to train my children. I'm looking for some direction of how to exhibit Islam on my job. My mother just died. What should I do? Is it proper for me to pay some money? Can I pay her to go to heaven? Can I pay her way to heaven? If so, who can I pay to get her in heaven? In order to answer those questions, we just can't recite Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We have to understand what the Quran says. And the Quran has the answer. It tells you what to do when death occurs. It tells you what to do when life occurs. It tells you what to do when you're on your job. It tells you what kind of job to pursue. It tells you what the nature of your relationship should be with your family. It's all in the Quran. We are therefore saying those who speak English, that Quran is in English and in Arabic. Get it. Those who speak Urdu, there are Qurans in Urdu, there are Qurans in Chinese, there are Qurans in Japanese, in French, and in Spanish. Get Quran that you can understand, read it, implement it. Then while you're doing that, we all want to learn Arabic because it unites us. We got something in common. Whether you're in Russia, China, Japan, we have a commonality about us. But you are not going to be condemned by Allah if you cannot read Arabic. In the days of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were some people saying, well, the Arabs are superior to the others. And they came to the Prophet, and they said, what about this? He said, look, let me just make this clear to you once and for all. Islam does not permit any differentiation between races, people, at all, or sexes. If you are Arabic, or African, or Chinese, or Japanese, in the sight of Allah, you are equal. Completely. That is the basic doctrine. That's why Muslims have been hated so much. Because there are people that would like to have division. They would like to control the world by divide and conquer. And when Islam comes and says we're one family, whether you're white or black or brown, it's one family. They don't like that because it's more difficult to divide the world along racial or class lines when you have 1,200,000,000 people sane and living in their heart a respect for one another based upon the fact that Allah created man and no one else. So I feel that it is indispensable that we read the Quran. It would be the same as someone saying to you, there's $1 million right here, but I'm not going to tell you what currency it is. All I can tell you is it's worth $1 million. Go and get it, and then spend it. You don't know whether to go to China to spend it, Russia, whether you go to Timbuktu or Mexico. So what is the value of the $1 million? Tell the man, if he's going to give you $1 million, what currency, who minted it, so that you will be able to use that money for the benefit of your purposes. Thank you very much. Next question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
You've just mentioned about the free zone where the youngsters and the elders get together and discuss things. How can we do this when the youngsters and mostly elders argue and fight amongst themselves and cannot unite? What is your message to these elders or these people?
Oh, I think that we should ignore them. We should establish by our performance the proper way. The time that you spend arguing with some backward, retarded elders, you could be implementing the way of Allah. Don't insult them. Don't offend them. Don't disrespect them. And I'm not saying all elders. I know some very progressive thinking elders. But what we must do is exhibit the Quran. Allah's not going to excuse us because we had a retarded elder or a backward elder or an elder who couldn't read or write. We cannot go to Allah and say, we almost did what you said, but you put that elder over us. He said, I put the Quran over you. And if you do not live up to the Quran, you will be judged. That's the purpose of an Islamic free zone. It's simply to say we want to exhibit Allah. If the elders want to come, fine. If they don't want to come, fine. But it's not going to stop us. We're going to read. We're going to write. We're not going to gossip. If someone comes in our meetings and say, let's talk about the elders, we tell them you can't do that here. This is an Islamic free zone. You can't gossip here. You cannot backbite here. We cannot have arguments here. We want to show the Islamic world that you don't have to have arguments, so we bring the Islamic free zone and we show you every day no arguments. We think, we reason, we examine, we review, we make a decision, and then we proceed. That is the Islamic free zone. It may start with 2 people and end up with 1,000 people. It may be 2 people and end up with 5 people. It's not an alternative to the mosque. It's simply an area where everyone commits themselves to honesty. No hypocrisy, honesty, reading, and application of the Quran. That's what the Islamic free zone is all about. Thank you.
No doubt there have been many events happening all over the world. The freeing of the Republic states in the USSR, which has led to the freedom of the practice in Islam as well, and other events like Iraq and Iraq. Can we trust the Western media in bringing us these 2 reports?
Absolutely not. We should not rely on the Western media. We should be there ourselves. One of the things that we want to do with this product, because we know instead of giving aid to people and they get junk food, they're sending aid to people in refugee camps that have almost no nutritional value at all. Food that the shelf life has expired, they are still sending it out there, giving people the feeling that they are getting nutrition. Food that is spoiled. This shelf life is about 3 years. You don't need any refrigerator. We can go to the hottest places of Africa and the coldest places in Alaska. But when we go there, it is not just food, it's a mission. We want to go there and ask them, how are you doing? If we go to Russia, we want to say to them, what have you gone through? What did Gorbachev do? What did Khrushchev do? What did Stalin and Lenin do? And then we want to write back to the people at home to circulate the real information about what we are doing all over the world. Why should we rely on someone who's already declared that they don't like us? This is not very intelligent. Nor should we blame them if we don't take the initiative to develop our own press service. We're not politicians. We're not trying to win votes. We simply want our people all over the world, 1,200,000,000, to know the truth. This is how Islamic knowledge was spread in the old days. Merchants traveled all over Africa on donkeys and camels. Every time they stopped, they would tell what happened in the last place. Knowledge was spread. They would talk about the glories of Timbuktu. They would talk about the glories of Cordoba. They would talk about Cordoba having over 400,000 books donated for the first library, the new breakthrough in medicine, the new breakthrough in structuring engineering. These were the things that the Muslims did to recycle information. We got sidetracked. Now all we recycle is gossip. I don't like her, she doesn't like me, her family did this to my family about 200 years ago. And we're never going to forget it. And our tribe will never forget. And we have taken a blood oath. Bury it. Let us network knowledge. Even if we have to go to China, network knowledge. That is our obligation, and that's what we must do. And start during Ramadan. That's a good time to start because you're so sensitive to knowledge and truth. Use Ramadan as the beginning and never stop. Just continue to insist. Parents, teach your children, don't gossip. We don't do that in this household. This is a home of peace. You should be able to walk in a Muslim's home and feel the peace. Today you walk in and you feel the confusion. Sloppy, smelly, nasty, mentally, physically, emotionally, physically. We are Muslims. We are bringing order and cleanliness. And we are bringing the proper path. But we have to do it. No one is going to do it for us. No one's going to come back from the dead and clean up our homes. We have to do it ourselves, and we have to do it now. That is the Islamic revolution, the revolution of the people. We want a revolution of politicians. If we have a demonstration, we're out there. Kill him and him and him and kill him. But I'm not talking about death. I'm talking about life. Being an example to the world through your life. Politicians, we have to have them from time to time, but most of them are corrupt. And so you kick out one group and bring in another group there, and let them be there 4 or 5 years, they're going to be just as corrupt as the others. Bring in the people. The power is with us. If we live a righteous life, the politician is intelligent enough to know, in order to keep our favor, he has to imitate what we want. If we establish the model, instead of waiting for him to establish the model, we will have an Islamic society. Thank you very much. Next question. Oh, all right, sorry.
I've got another question. It's regarding this Islamic parliament that I've heard of, and some people say that it isn't a good time to have a parliament, but what are your views on this parliament?
Well, I have to confess that I don't know very much about the Islamic Parliament. I've heard several reports about it, but I don't know very much about it. My standard for any political activity is, what is your program? I don't care about the names. Call it Islamic Parliament, Jihad Parliament, Righteous Parliament, Mustaqim Parliament. I don't care about that. What is your program? Because it's based on the program that I can predict what benefits will flow to the people. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked to explain his program, he explained it very clearly. Education, mass education for everyone. Economically, he said I want to develop businesses, trade, And those who are working, we want you to give an honest day's work. That was an economic program because you could see the benefits. He said, I want the Muslims saving money. Because when you save money, you have strong capital institutions that can foster businesses like the Japanese. They save 20% of their money. And of the top 20 banks in the world, the first 12 are Japanese. They didn't have to wait for any kind of parliament. It was a program that required discipline, and the people were prepared to join in the program. The family, women being respected properly. Some of the men go around talking about Allah wants them to abuse women. So just saying Islamic parliament is not going to change that. If we're not studying in school, just saying Islamic parliament is not going to change that. If we don't save money, just saying Islamic parliament is not going to change that. If we don't respect ourselves, saying Islamic parliament is not going to change that. If we are not willing to support another Muslim business, saying Islamic parliament is not going to encourage us to do that. So what I want is the specific details of how to get the benefits for the masses of people. Don't give me the name till last. Give me the strategy, practical strategy of what you are going to do. And this has been my greatest difficulty. Most of the people that I talk to have all kind of isms, all kind of enthusiasm. They talk about wanting to change the world, have that first Islamic state. They don't like anyone. We don't like that country. We don't like that country. We don't like that country. They're not Islamic. All right, brother, where is this Islamic state? We're going to make it ourselves. Wonderful. Where is the program? What are the strategies? What will you do the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year? If there's this much illiteracy the first year, what will it be the second year? If there's this much unemployment among Muslims the first year, what will it be the third year? How will you get that reduction? Specifically, give me concrete steps for bringing our people the things that Allah would have them enjoy. They don't want to discuss. They say, oh, you must be a lackey. You sold out. We don't have to answer to you. We are answering to Allah. There, brother, all this rhetoric, I've heard it all. Give me from the Quran what your specific program is. I'm simply saying I'm not condemning in any way the Islamic Parliament. I don't know anything about them. But I'm saying whether it's Islamic Parliament or anyone else, get the program and examine it from an economic point of view, a social point of view, an educational point of view, a media point of view, a solidarity point of view. And if it does not meet the specific test and specific terms of how we are going to move ahead, leave it to the politicians to talk about. Next question. We only have about 12 minutes, and it is my fault because I have answered the questions too long. But there are only two that I see with questions, so that gives me 6 minutes apiece.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah, we have listened to an inspiring lecture, and I'm sure all the brothers and sisters here will take some sort of a lesson, and inshallah we will join that movement you mentioned in your lecture.
Inshallah.
I have this question. What is the role of the Imam in the mosque in Islam? Is it just leading the prayer and teaching the children, or should he play an active part in other matters?
The Imam should do everything within his qualifications. So I don't want the Imam running my business if he doesn't know anything about accounting. I do not want him developing an educational curriculum if he doesn't understand anything about the demands of modern education. I do not want him leading an archaeological expedition if he doesn't know anything about archaeology. So we have to find out what the training of the imam is, and do not expect from him things beyond his qualifications. We want an imam to do everything. We want the imam to do all the things that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, and that's just not going to happen. The Prophet was an unusual person. He was a merchant before he was a teacher. He understood business. He traveled. He talked to people all over. He was familiar with various practices. He had to learn military strategy. But his mind is geared to systematic reasoning. So he was able to develop. But he built schools himself. He helped build the mosque, carrying bricks when he was 53 years of age. Now, I don't mind the imam carrying bricks if he doesn't hurt himself. I don't want him to hurt himself. But I think that we should be realistic. If the imam is studied all of his life prayers, let him lead the prayers. And if he wants to lead the economic, then let him study business. If the imam all of his life has learned how to recite the Quran, encourage him to recite the Quran. If he knows how to build a rapport with the youth and encourage and inspire them, give him credit for that. Let's not disrespect the imam. If he is a hafiz and he's spent all of these years memorizing the Quran, I respect that. I wish I could do it. I'm not jealous. I respect it. But we must not expect him to perform those things that he has no qualifications for. And the imam must humbly decline to do those things he is not qualified to do. There's nothing wrong with saying that I don't know how to do that. And sometimes the imam will get a board of advisors and none of them know how to do it. So you have to be honest. That is what Islam is all about. We are encouraged to take advice and to consult and to give direction based upon fair advice. But let us know our limitations, and there's nothing to prevent us from taking a few extra courses. If I don't know anything about a computer and they have schools open at night, after I lead the prayer, I can run to the school and start learning about the computer, so when I come back to you, I can help you with computers. In the meantime, if the imam does not know how to do these things, don't try to just attack him every day. I don't like the imam, he can't do this, 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 this. Don't do that. What we should do is set the example. Let us show what can be done, how we can run a proper business, how we can provide jobs, how we can train, how we can manage our time. So we just don't waste time all day long. We have a systematic schedule to know how to compete effectively. Let us show how public relations and the proper news stories can be distributed and recycled among us. Let us read and discuss the Quran so that we can have the proper life. In short, let us stop this habit of trying to criticize anyone and everyone except ourselves. The movement is ours. We are the people. Let us implement the movement first, starting with ourselves. Assalamu alaikum. One. This may be the last question, unless there are others. Yes, sir. Wa alaikum salam.
Can I first of all thank you for your kind words today?
Allah salam.
My question relates to the comments you made about knowledge and the importance of knowledge. I'm sure everybody in the hall agrees the necessity of knowledge and the use of knowledge. However, the comment you made about youngsters and schools. Now, the common problem that we're having in England is that parents are having a lot of difficulty. I mean, I'm talking about vast majority are having difficulty in reconciling getting the top grades at schools, which is a totally non-Islamic environment, which invites their child away from Islam all day, and then having a child who, so you said about having the values of Islam inside of him.
Well, I think that it's consistent. I think that we are direct people to knowledge. And mathematics, there's no Islamic mathematics and non-Islamic mathematics and Islamic computers and non-Islamic computers and Islamic archaeology and non-Islamic archaeology. Most of the sciences require discipline and application. Where you get interpretation will come with history courses, sociology courses, but when you take the whole curriculum, that's a minor part of the curriculum. The bulk of the curriculum is not in these interpretive fields. And we should, as parents, provide in our home for our children the framework to correct any confusion they get in school. If 10% of the curriculum is interpretive and it can be used against Islam, we should be looking at the book that they read, telling the children, when you see this, this is not Islamic. That's not a problem. Why can we not have the highest grades in school? Most of the reasons deal with our students are not refusing to pay attention because it's un-Islamic. They're having fun. They want to go to the disco. Now, the disco is much more dangerous than that school. They will learn more un-Islamic things at the disco and talking to some of their friends with some of these TV videos than they will at school. So the challenge is we want to watch what's being taught at school. We certainly want to protect our children against anything taught that is not proper, but we don't want to use that as an excuse to accept mediocrity. We will take the best and highest grades in the school and have stronger Islamic commitment than ever before if our parents do the job.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I have something of a peculiar question for you, but it's a question that intrigues me and interests me. To what extent would you say there's a Jewish and a Christian conspiracy against Islam today?
To a great extent. Because for different reasons, not every single practicing Christian, but many so-called Christian nations are intent on ruling the world. And they know that they are a minority. So the only way they can rule the world is to take over other religions. The Europeans have taken over Christianity already, as long ago as the 4th century. Jesus had not been dead 500 years before the Europeans had taken over Christianity. And when they took over Christianity, they made Mary white, Jesus white, they made Moses white, Abraham white, everyone in the Bible white, and all the angels white. You cannot imagine an angel flying in heaven that looks like me, as good looking as I am. The Europeans took over Judaism. You should read a book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Kostner that shows you, written by a Jew, that shows you how in the land of Khazan, King Baloo accepted Judaism. He was not biologically a Jew. He had no relationship with Abraham, Isaac, or Jesus, or David. He simply adopted Judaism and said to his people, we will be Jews. And he wrote letters saying, we are not of the seed of Abraham. But now the Europeans have taken over Judaism, and the first thing they did is they went back to the Middle East and they said God gave us the land. They don't know when exactly he gave it to them. They don't know who was around to witness it. They don't know how long he gave it to them for, but all they said is don't ask us any question. God gave it to us. And if you don't believe, we're going to drop some bombs on you. We're going to shut down your schools. We're going to put up settlements in your homes. We're going to shoot people in your mosque, the Aqsa Mosque, just to let you know God is with us and not with you. So this conspiracy exists. The Russians said that they're not going to point their nuclear weapons anymore at the West. They're going to point it to the Muslim countries. India said that they're going to recognize India, and India will recognize Israel. And they said, why? Because we have common enemies and common things to watch, the Muslims. The Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States of America said that even if the Cold War is dissolved, it is the intent of the American people, we are told a Christian nation, to scare the world to death, to have the military might, these are his words, to scare the world to death. What world are they talking about? What world have they defied? People of color. The United States did not attack Russia after Czechoslovakia, after the Hungarian uprising. Rather, it was Grenada, Panama. The eyes now are on Cuba, not Eastern Europe. If there is an election and a takeover by a military government, they are not going to send troops if it is white, and they're not going to send troops unless they are in accord of the policy of those they are defending. This is the conspiracy of the West. They are serious. They drop atomic bomb on Japan, not Germany. They talk about how much the Japanese are taking over America, but they don't talk about the investment from England, which is greater than Japan. They don't talk about the investment from Germany. They single out people of color, and they've been doing it for 300 years, and they will continue to do it. And that's why they want to keep the veto power in the Security Council in the hands of white Christian nations. So that anything the most of the people in the world want to do, they say, stop, veto. Veto. England, Christian country, veto. France, Christian country, veto. United States, Christian country, veto. The only country that they let in was China because of its enormous population, and they thought at that time that China would become a Christian country. They were hoping for the revival of the ghost of Chiang Kai-shek. Christian missionaries were flooding China, trying to guarantee that China would be Christian. And China issued a decree that made the West hate them. China said, we know how hard you've tried to make China a Christian nation. We know how many missionaries you've sent here. But we have this to tell you. Islam is indigenous to China, and Christianity is foreign to China. That is a decree issued by the Chinese government in the last 5 years. So the West says, we don't like China. You see how they are criticizing China now? Before China was all right, now every other day, Chinese are abusing human rights. But Israel, they don't talk about. And as a matter of fact, Israel is rewarded. When Israel steals the Arab lands, from 1967 until the present, the United States has given to Israel $77 billion. Israel gets approximately $4 billion a year. All of Africa, excluding Egypt, gets somewhere around 600-700 million. Compare the populations, 3.5 million people. What would justify giving Israel this money? What would justify the born-again Christian evangelists saying that we must support Israel, even though they know that Israel is killing Palestinians, detaining them for no reason. They don't have to give a reason. They just detain them for 6 months. And then after the last day of the 6 months, they let them to the outskirts of the camp, then bring them back again for another 6 months. They deport people that have been living on this land for thousands of years. And the Europeans have never lived there. So the born-again Christian says, well, it must be God's will. We don't want to criticize God. I said, if it's God's will, show me. Show me. So the Christian nations and Israel have decided that since they represent such a small part of the world population, the white Christians and the white Jews, probably less than 13% of the world. So they can't rule by numbers. They can't rule by voting. If you vote, they'll be outvoted. When the United States got outvoted in the United Nations, they got very, very angry. They said that these people were not civilized. Not civilized, because they were getting outvoted. They just withdrew from UNESCO. Said, we're not going to pay any money. Can you imagine? You're outvoted. You say, well, if I can't have my way, we're not going to play. What is this way, this new world order? How comfortable can you be? I'm simply telling you that the Muslims must not go to sleep. There's a small group of people who would like to rule the world, and they are all non-colored. And the Muslims had better wake up and forget little silly artificial differences and join together. Or we're going to find ourselves like Iraq. We're going to find ourselves in desolation, not knowing what hit us. Let us come together, not to declare war or to steal people's lands or to abuse people or insult people, but to guarantee justice in the world based upon knowledge and discipline and economic enterprise and freedom. Real free speech, not free speech based upon those things that the West wants to hear. Thank you very much. Is the last question? Unless there's another. If there's another, I'll just come down here and answer it. But I think they have to terminate because the time based on the regulations for this particular evening lecture. Yes, sir. Walaikum salam.
I'd like to thank you for coming here to talk to us.
Allah salam, it's my pleasure.
Actually, the question is to do with your speech, but I would like to hear you say some more. You mentioned about the surrender, not running to sticks and stones, but to Allah. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught his companions how to surrender in the way Allah wants, and Allah confirmed their surrender. Now, the people of the time, whether they were Muslims or non-Muslims, they knew what was Islam and how to surrender. They knew how Allah wanted them to surrender. Now today, alhamdulillah, we have a lot of scholars telling us how, and there are many, many books that we can read. But what we see is totally contradictory to the surrender. When we go outside, we don't see Islam. We see things totally opposite. When we are at home and we are watching TV, it's things totally opposite. Wherever we go, we don't see Islam, but we see things which are against Islam. So we learn some things by reading books, but how can we learn the things which can't be acquired from books alone?
Well, the first book you're going to read is the Quran, and it has everything. That's the blueprint. That's the guide. That is what will bring us back. The problem is we're not reading the Quran. That's why we are deviating from the standard of Islam, is because we don't know Islam. We know some ceremonial observances. The substance of Islam is so plain and simple. We must read it and implement it in every dimension of our life. If we want to see Islam, I should look at you first. You should look at me first. That's how we start. And everyone look at themselves and say, am I living the life of a Muslim? Then we should help each other if there's deviation. I can't make anyone, but I can say, brother, I don't believe you know this is in the Quran and you're still getting drunk. I don't believe you know this and you're still smoking cigarettes. So some people say, well, you can talk about alcohol, but don't talk about the cigarettes. Allah has told us that we should not destroy our bodies that He has given us. The cigarettes have been empirically proven to destroy and cause cancer. So throw them away. But we don't want to throw them away because we like them. So we say, instead of saying, I have a problem and I'm not yet up to the standard of Islam, we say, well, it's really not in the Quran. We must come to the Quran, read the Quran, follow the Quran. That is the key. And in the Quran, it tells us all knowledge. So as soon as you go to the Quran directs you physiology, medicine, dentistry, computer science, electronics. All knowledge is for the Muslim. So we are in a continual search for knowledge.
A few more direct words. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to implement the Quran. He was sent as exemplar, and people saw his example. Today we don't have that example everywhere, so we do not know how to implement. Not everybody does.
Well,
so how do we fulfill that lack of example?
I just haven't found the problem. I read the Quran, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to be the example because I'm going to follow the Quran. Allah has sent messengers to every nation in the world, but they're not going to keep them there forever. Some the names we know, some the names we don't know. We're not children. We don't need someone holding our hand. Allah is inside of us. We have the greatest teacher in the world, Allah. We are either going to follow Him or we're going to look for excuses. There will be, my friend, no excuse. On the day of judgment, you cannot tell Allah, you didn't give me an example, so I'm holding you responsible for my sinful life. Allah will say, yes, hold me responsible, but hold me in hell, because that's where you're going. Allah has provided for us the direction, and He is not going to accept any excuses, period. We will stand in front of Him. We cannot look to Adam, Eve, Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, no one. We will look at our life, and we will measure it next to that Quran. And if we do not measure up, in hell, we will lift up our eyes. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much once again, Dr. Khalid. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming here and making this a very successful evening for all.
Gather them together, black and white, Bishop Tutu, everyone, come together and repent for lying on God. Now, I would ask you, as a Christian, one who proclaims and professes to have met Jesus, how are you and your people going to develop 2 million jobs for the country? All right. How are you going to stop making the Pope white, Mary white, Jesus white, Moses white when they were not white? When and where are you going to develop a mass education program and not tell the people to wait till they get to heaven? When are you going to tell the man with 47 cars to sell those cars and give that money back to the poor people so that they might have a decent life? When are you going to repent on behalf of the Christians for enslaving the people, the descendants of whom are in this building tonight? When are you going to repent for causing the slaves to be prostitutes? When are you going to repent and ask forgiveness? When are you going to ask the white people to give back at least half of the 87% of the land that they stole, in view of the fact that the Bible said, thou shalt not steal? When are you going to persuade your Christian white brothers to not control 95% of every asset in this country? And finally, when are you going to persuade the white people to give to the Tswana tribe all the Kimberley property that was the birthplace of all of the diamonds, and give them an accounting for all the money due to them? When?
I have not studied much, but what I do know, I have met Jesus.
Thank you
and
very
I
much.
know he has changed my life.
So
and
you don't want to answer the
know
question?
that he will change many other
Thank
people
you, sir.
if you accept him.
Can I have the next question?
All right,
please?
brother.
Thank you very much.
Keep the faith. When white people say they're white, they're not referring to the color of their skin. If Margaret Thatcher gets a suntan, I don't know what it would look like, but let's just assume that Margaret Thatcher got a suntan. You wouldn't call her a colored woman, would you? You would still call her a white woman, even though her skin may be brown. What do you mean when you say white? You mean that she is from Europe. So whether she's Italian, white, Sweden, white, England, white, France, white. White means coming from Europe. Black means coming from Africa. So whether we're fair skin, brown skin, dark skin, East Coast, West Coast, North, South, if we're from the black continent and we've been here 300 years, we are black people from the black continent. All over the world, 1 billion people uniting through Ramadan. That's why I'm hopeful and optimistic that by the year 2050, when 1 out of every 2 persons would have been born a Muslim, we would have the first real meaningful opportunity for a permanent world peace. Assalamu alaikum. This country could explode. Who will be the first targets? The businessmen, the lawyers, those who didn't want the masses in their office. They will come without your permission. So if Hitler killed 6 million Jews who were European Jews, and Hitler was a European, give the Jews part of Germany, not of Palestine. Sure, he worked, so do I. Raising the kids is not easy. Cooking and washing and taking them to school, this is not easy. He doesn't seem to understand I work too. What I'm trying to find out, and you may know better than I do, tell me specifically, if I got this, everyone in this room, and we went out to the homeland and we started teaching people how to read who did not know how to read, what would the government do? What I'm saying to you in closing is that there is a great opportunity to really be a new South Africa and a new African. Forget the begging. There will be no gifts. I don't care what the World Bank tells you and the International Monetary Fund tells you. It's crumbs.